All right, welcome to Infiltrate Radio. Biz, what episode is this? 37?
I forgot to look.
I'm pretty sure we're on episode 37. And we've got Mr. Trent Monroe joining us today. How's it going, man?
I'm good, bro. Just,
Yeah, so actually we had your brother on. I was telling you before we started here. We had your brother on last week. So we're gonna do your whole family by the end of this. Everyone in your family will be on the
I
show.
know, sisters, the nieces and nephews. Let's do it.
Yeah. So you're a singer-songwriter, a musician. Do you play instruments as well?
No instruments.
No instruments. So singer-songwriter. You write songs and you sing them beautifully. I might add because I've reached out and listened to some. So as per usual on the show, we talk about what we're drinking. So I know you ran off there to grab something real quick. What are you drinking today, Trent?
I am on my sparkling today, man.
A little LaCroix action. What
Well,
flavor?
LaCroix?
Is that how you say it?
It
I
sucks
don't know.
to figure out how to pronounce these things. It's just like I just say the la right. Everything else is
Subjective.
subjective
It's all
after
subjective.
la, whatever you think is. But yeah, this my thing right here. I like sparkling water, man. I tap in quite frequently. So
Yeah, I do a lot of the seltzer too because I try and keep my girlish figure.
Which flavor is your favorite of the LaCroix?
this one right here.
The pomegranate berry or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
that
one.
one's not bad. That one's probably the better one of that flavor. You mess with the other flavors of sparkling water too, or just that one?
I've had a few of them, but I end up finding myself buying this one. There's a couple of other sparkling waters that I like that have that I grab every now and then. Some
I like
different
Polar.
Yeah, I would say they got Polar in LA. That one's a good one. That one's got a good sparkling or a good like carbonated punch, still with like mild flavor, and it's not like too sweet or anything.
Polar
Yeah.
makes around like Christmas time too. They do like all these different flavored ones like champagne, apple, like all sorts of. Oh, it's so good.
Ooh
So
la la.
what are you drinking there, Biz? I know you got some crazy shit.
Yeah, so
that you're
I
drinking.
decided to get the gross thing that I was telling you about. This is a Nestle Milo. This is called. I got this in the international aisle of a Walmart. This is a chocolate energy drink, chocolate flavored natural energy drink. It's called. On the ingredients, it says best served chilled, shake well before opening, consume immediately after opening.
Immediately, so you can't like 10 minutes after you'd be.
Yeah, you can't like drink half of it and like put it in the fridge, I think. And then I decided to go with some peace tea as well
Huh.
to wash that down. I got an extra big one because it's gonna be
Smoker.
filthy.
And keep in mind too, we're gonna put links to all the stuff in the post, so you help support the show if you click on those links and purchase any of the drinks. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to get this. Maybe it's available online. They're selling alcohol now everywhere, right? Because people can't leave their house.
That's correct.
So I first tried these. I'm always in hotels, and I always go to the bars and have a drink at any hotels, and I haven't gone lately. But I was in New York City and staying at a hotel, and they had this Knob Creek. On the rocks cocktails, like pre-bottled cocktails, and I remember drinking this or buying a bottle. I think I was going to go out somewhere. I was like, oh, I'll buy a bottle of this because it's got a screw top on it, and I'll drink it, on the subway or whatever. I swear to you, like 90% of this is whiskey. Like it's so strong. But I found it in a liquor store here, surprisingly. And then they also had just to be extra manly, I got the Cosmopolitan they make too. So I think I got to save some of that for my girlfriend when I start drinking. But I'm going to start with the Cosmopolitan.
Extra manly.
So Trent, we didn't come on just to talk about drinks.
It's all good. We all
We
like to
can't.
drink, right?
Yeah, yeah. Do you drink alcohol or no? Are you a non-alcoholic person like
Like
Biz?
myself here.
You know what? I didn't drink alcohol at all before I moved to California.
Hmm.
And, just being around everywhere, I was just like, I'm one of those like kind of humble guys. So I got tired of people offering, always saying no. So I drank a few times and I was like, hey, it's cool. But I found out it wasn't really for me.
Yeah.
So I'm a wine guy. So every once in a while, like I like to drink like wine,
Treat
cigar.
yourself a little. Yeah.
Yeah, California is definitely the spot for good wine too.
Yeah, but alcohol though, I don't know what it's just not. We don't have a good relationship, man. It just
Yeah,
hurts my we
It's
can
not
stop.
ideal. Yeah, same. I stopped drinking in 2007, like a month or so after we graduated high school. I stopped drinking because I was like, I don't think I want to be an adult like this, because I had been drinking for like a year or so maybe, and I was like, I dabble with this. It's just this ain't the life I'm trying to live. So
Yeah,
stopped
I
drinking
mean,
in July of '07.
that's what's up, man. Yeah, alcohol, I mean, it's dope, man. Like I had a few good times on it. You know what I mean? Like just drinking, and I was like, it's just
Same.
super dope. But I'm kind of like a free spirit already, so I was like, I think a little bit should get me in trouble.
Yeah.
Fair,
Um,
fair.
You
all
know?
right, awesome. So just to let you know, Trent, I'm getting when you hit the when you're hitting your, I think your keyboard or your
Uh
laptop,
huh.
I'm getting a little bit of a thumping sound. So just be a little mindful of
My
that.
bad.
But that's all right. So yeah, so what are you up to, man? We talked to your brother last week. We've got some news that you're an up and coming musician now,
And that you're
uh,
good at business.
and that
Your brother
you're
was plugging
yeah.
you that you're quite the businessman. You're the one that makes a lot of the moves and a lot of the action, and
I mean, I'm learning, man. You know,
eh,
it's a learning man's game.
so
So
humble, so humble, so humble. Tell us a little bit about your journey as far as like not only what got you, obviously what got you started as a musician is you can sing,
mhm.
but like tell us a little bit about like who nurtured that, and like kind of what your early years were looking like as you navigated, you know, trying to move to LA and pursue that as full time as you have.
Man, music started, man, since, I mean, super young. You know, everybody, I feel like kind of, not everybody, but most people kind of find their niche when they're young,
Yeah.
you know, what they love. But just being around the family, listening to good music, you know, vibing out. And I took a liking to it, you know, and actually in middle school is where it kind of like settled in more, you know, more so. So I kind of hung out, you know, just with the friends, and we ended up getting into music or whatnot. And you know, it was just
Hmm.
it became a, a big part of my life, you know. So
What were your early influences? I remember, so because I'm a musician too, Trent, so I can relate to the struggle with choosing music as a profession and just as a a passion, even just like how deeply it integrates into your life. I remember the first song I really remember is being like conscious of the fact that it was there. My dad was playing Jimi Hendrix's "Hey Joe" on a record player, sitting on the floor in his room, and he had it on some kind of like milk crate that used to keep records in, and he had the record player on there. He was playing "Hey Joe," and I remember just listening to that and being like, "Oh my god, what the heck is this?" And then I started getting to like Michael Jackson and you know
uh,
jazz and all that kind of stuff. What were your early influences? Like, what were your parents listening to that you were like, "Oh shit, I really like that."
um, it all started at daycare, man. It's kind of one of my earliest vague memories of music. So I only thing I can always only remember was sitting under the table, and I used to watch the Sade "No Ordinary Love" video and the Tevin Campbell "Can We Talk" song. I had to be
Nice.
maybe 4, 3, I don't know. It was in Florida, and it was so captivating, and I fell in love with music after that. I think that was the moment I fell in love with the idea of anything involved with music, you know.
Hmm.
And then as I got older, you know, I started getting into more like heavy R&B, you know, the Joes, the Tyrese, the Avants. In middle school, high school, those were like my go-to guys. Never was like too big into like Michael and a lot of the mainstream guys.
Yeah,
Just until I
I
got
think
older,
I'm probably a little older than you too, right? So how old are you? You're young.
30.
Okay, yeah, how old am I, Biz? I'm 40 now, right?
Good
I
God,
ha-
stop.
I have to mention it every time because it bothers Biz that I mention it every time. um, but yeah. So like the R&B thing, I remember because that was so if you're 10 years younger than me, that was like the 90s, especially were heavy like R&B stuff.
Oh,
Um,
so much, so much. My
and,
mom was such a big R&B listener, dude. I'm not really the biggest fan of R&B. I plugged a
Mhm.
couple of Trent stuff just because,
Yeah.
I grew up with Trent a little bit. I met him in middle school, funny enough. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was one of those things where I I because my mom listened to it so heavy, I was just so sick of it all the time. And I can't sing at all. She was always singing, and I was like, man, this is whack, dude. Can we listen to something I can at least vibe to? Like,
Right.
can't do this sad stuff.
You
I
know
haven't
who?
been through heartbreak yet.
Right.
Speaking of like '90s, I don't know if they're necessarily R&B, but do you guys remember En Vogue at all? I remember
Mhm.
bringing up some of their songs recently.
Yeah.
I was drinking and I was like, oh, I want to listen to this song.
They
They
make
did
good music.
"Free Your Mind," that song. I used to love
The
that.
older I got, the more I begin to appreciate a lot of the older artists that I wasn't, introduced to. Because I listened to them. My dad listened to a lot of old school, Marvin Gaye, Jackie Wilson.
Yeah, all the good.
It's a bunch of dope stuff that I kind of was like, okay, you
Was
know,
he a musician too? Did he
my dad was a boxer.
a boxer? Oh, that's right.
Come on, man. You
No,
remember
but I
that from
know.
last week.
But he can be a boxer and play music too. You
True,
know.
Yeah, he was
true,
a,
true that.
he was a boxer slash pimp. You know what I mean? So he had to have the music. He had to have the good music going for him. So,
Yeah.
but my mom was, she was big into music too. Her era was kind of like the '80s, so she kind of like put me onto a lot of like Crush Groove artists. The Run DMCs. She was a B girl when she was young, so
Mhm.
she was really into like her, her music. So, but it's dope. Music is so super dope.
Is
Super.
so when you started first writing, were you just writing to like existing stuff, or was it like how did you start writing music, like getting into making your own music? Because there's a big jump from like almost everyone listens to music, you know,
Mhm.
a lot, but not everyone goes into saying I want to actually make music. You know what I mean?
And
Right.
make original music at that. You know what I mean? A lot of people try to cover, or I could get a feature here and there, like, but not too many people straight up solo artist it and decide to start writing and do stuff like that.
Yeah. I was always a writer from a young age. I never really wrote to. I kind of wrote melodies in my head a lot and words. I did more of the word on paper process when I was a lot younger. And then when I got a little older and was in an R&B group, another one of the members, Lamar, he did most of the writing, and I did most of the business stuff. So I actually took a step away from the creative side and focused more on the business and just because I felt like at the time that was my strong point in the group. But once we eventually broke up and we all went our separate ways, you know, I kind of got immersed back into writing more. But by that time, I had went through a few things and relationships and had a child, and so there's a lot of stuff that I was able to pull from to begin to write.
Yeah.
Um, in that process, more so by that time, I kind of fell in love with the process of writing, where I hear the music, then add the words.
Hmm.
So it really wasn't the process of writing the words down that kind of doesn't exist anymore for me. I kind of like if I feel the music, then I can add melodies and words and so on and so forth. But um,
Hmm.
that's kind of like how the writing has transcended over the years.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's something I've asked almost every musician,
Yeah,
right?
I'll say every
Like,
every guest that's a musical artist, you actually already answered one of the questions he tends to ask at the end about do you tend to hear the music first and then write the words, or do the words come first and then the music? So thank you for that.
but you've done it kind of both ways. You said, right? Like at first you were writing lyrics and then trying to. Is it? Did you find why did you switch to like going to the music first or primarily doing that? Was it just like
Is that
I,
natural?
I find it like sometimes I'll write lyrics and I have something in my head that I'm writing them kind of too, and then when I go to put actual music to it, I find like I'm trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't necessarily fit, and you could force it to, but then the music, I'm like, oh, but this is so hot. Like I need to write lyrics that go to that music, not necessarily these ones I'm just trying to shove on it. Um,
I think I look at writing more of writing for music is, I guess, less poetry. Like poetry is more so like it's a world within itself. It's
Right.
word, and you
Stick.
create the
Yeah.
emotion off the words alone, and there's no need for any musical influence. You evoke the emotion strictly through the words. But with music, to me, music moves. You know, so as I got older, I found out, like, especially because a lot of people don't know I do so many different genres of music as well. Like I write country, I write, pop, I write, hip hop, I write, R&B, jazz. Like so when you're not, I guess when you're not one dimensional, it's kind of hard to kind of start from a blank canvas of just words. You kind of need the assistance of some type of movement, so where what vibe to be in. It's just like, okay, cool. I hear the beat. I hear the music. I know where I want to be. I know how I want to sound. I know what vocal tone I want to be in. I want range I want to be in. So that's just helpful for me. But there's great writers out there that start from a poetry standpoint where they come up with the words, and then once they find a body of music that can complement it, they mesh it together and they make it work, it's an art within itself. Like not everybody has. There's no one way to get to the pot of gold. You just have to find out what way works for you.
Yeah. I was talking with John Laurie. We had him on the show. He's from a national touring band, Tantric. They're like an alternative, and he was saying that's how he writes. How they usually come in with lyrics and then write the music to it. Which I don't know how. I've never gotten that to function. Like, do you feel yourself going in a particular genre more than others? Though I know you had a heavy, like, you said R&B kind of influence. Like, do you feel like you write more in that world than anything else?
It'll be more heavy, like R&B, pop, contemporary adult. I mean, like far as some dance stuff here and there. I'm more of a storyteller than I am, just a song maker.
Yeah.
Stuff like you have those artists that make songs strictly for like, look, it's dancing, it's make you feel good, and you got
it's got a hook.
Right. Trying to paint a picture. So, I'm more of that type of artist, I would say. So I like to kind of push people to use their minds with my music, and it's kind of hard because you have to find a happy medium of, dumbing down, your music a little bit to where it can still resonate with people that aren't, necessarily in tune with what you're doing exactly, but you don't want to miss them as well. So, it's cool, but, I mean, honestly, like I've learned even coming to LA was super important for me as an artist because I work with a lot of artists in Rochester, but and I feel like we have the grit of like raw talent. Like Rochester to me has some of the best just raw talent. And saying that we have the ability, like we're sharpened when you take raw talent and you sharpen it, we are the superstars. Like we have the potential to be, the cream of the crop. So it wasn't until I came out here where I was introduced to a lot of different methods of writing, and a lot of, musicians and a lot of different songwriters. And I was able to like, just be a part of their creative process, which only added to mine. But it wasn't until I was able to be around the people that I looked up to and started to see how they work and see how they execute things, where I was even able to appreciate someone writing differently than I did. Like people writing to piano to me now is like one of the most important ways to write, because it's like there's no it's movement without any like it's like movement without drama. Once you add percussion and drums, it's like here comes the drama, here comes the but it's like if you can just captivate the movement and the words and have a great song with just that.
There's a lot of points in everything you just said I want to touch. Just like four or five different things that you said there that are that I find interesting. So like one, the dumbing down, and I think what you mean by that is so a lot of modern pop music, and especially hip hop, which kind of annoys me a little bit how little storytelling there is in modern, like, or at least the hip hop that's like mainstream right now has lost that. I grew up in Queens, like you touched on Run DMC. I was actually out in LA in February for the Grammys, and it just so happened that I ran into Daryl in the airport. I made my daughter go up to him and like say,
Hmm.
hey, go up to him and tell him you want a picture with him. So because I really wanted a picture, to, shake his hand and stuff. Because
It's all
I just
good.
grew up with Run DMC and the Fat Boys. I don't know if you guys are probably too young
Sheila
still for the
E,
Fat Boys,
Fat
but yeah,
Boy,
yeah,
Curtis
all those.
Blow.
Yeah,
Let's go.
back in the day. But like, so there's like the beginning of hip hop and even rock music where there are like Led Zeppelin, there's stories within the music, and early hip hop into even just, I mean, up until, Jay-Z in the 2000s, even there's way more storytelling, like Nas and all the like amazing 90s hip hop. And somewhere along the line it turned into like this machine of churning out hooks.
Mhm.
um, and I think that what's interesting about what you said is not, I don't think it's necessarily a dumbing down. There's a way to do it where you don't lose the significance of the piece of music or the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
Where the people that did that, like even Nas has these super complex stories. Like I forget the name of the song where he wrote it from
Rewind.
the end of the story, yeah, to
Yep.
the end of the
Rewind.
story to the beginning, right? But like it's super complex, but still there's a catchy kind of hook that's easy to get, like easy to go along on the journey with, right? So you can introduce complex ideas within this like simple structure. And I think like the Beatles did that really well, where they told these complex stories and made you visualize things, but the
Mhm.
songs themselves are, some of them are complicated, but for the most part they're
So
simple.
basic. Yeah. And they're so basic and so easy when you think about, you know what I mean? The reason that the Beatles were kind of like revolutionary is because they did something that had never been done before. But by the time any of us witnessed it, it was overdone and redone. So witnessing it in its simplistic form is still so like, have you ever met someone that like literally doesn't like any Beatles songs at all ever? You know what I mean? There's some people that are like, oh yeah, they're overplayed or they're what's the term? Not underrated, but like overrated. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? But there's at least like one song that almost everyone can be like, ah, yeah, like
Yep.
that's my jam. Like,
But
you
again,
know what
again, I think that what you kind of said too was that,
I mean?
you've got to dumb it down or simplify it so that it's easy for someone in 3.5 minutes to pick up on what you're doing and go along for the ride early enough in the song to want to take the rest of the ride and listen
And they
throughout.
don't skip it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think sometimes modern pop music takes that too far, and it's just a repetitive, like, it's nonsense in there, and it's catchy, and for someone to be able to catch on to it really quickly and be able to sing along with it, but ultimately it's nonsense, and for musicians that drives us nuts, I think,
I feel
especially
like
if
I'm
you're
Gucci Man in 2006.
if you're into storytelling, Trent, that's something that I really appreciate, like lyrically and stuff. Is someone that's going to take me on a journey. Like, look, before we even get any further, like, where can people find your music if they're looking to get it?
Yeah, I'm on Spotify, Trent Monroe, YouTube, Trent Monroe. I'm actually releasing my first actual project, EP, LP, whatever, in November.
Nice.
So
Great.
I'm actually getting everything, the final mixes and masters done now. So I've been trying to do a project for years, but for some weird reason it just wasn't able to mesh together. But I finally was able to get a group of people together and put out some good, good quality. It's just the first step of many, but
Were you recording it all
Are
through
you?
the COVID thing, through the quarantine stuff?
you know what? I actually didn't, man. Um, I kind of used COVID to get back in touch with not recording as much and more singing because I feel like because I also a lot of people don't know I'm actually heavily involved in film as well.
Hmm.
It's just kind of like it's always been a second passion for me. I just kind of don't speak about it that much, but me and my partners out here, we have a group of us, and we actually write a lot of music for television and film.
Hmm.
Nice.
Um,
That's where the money is right now too. I mean, you've got a handful of artists that are like pop artists that are making money out, touring and doing that sort of thing. But
yeah,
dude, licensing is that's where the
One
money's
one
at.
question, one question, real quick. Are you also on Apple Music and like Google Music, like Google
yeah,
Play
Apple,
Music?
Google, Title.
So pretty much every platform, just straight up Trent Monroe, first name,
Yep,
last name, kept it simple. Great.
yep. Simple as that. I try to keep it simple for the people.
Yeah. Now, do you like weird question because you mentioned the film thing? Do you have any sort of way? Because obviously you're on social media, and most of your social media revolves around your R&B and your music songwriting career. Do you have any other way to follow your journey as far as your filmmaking sort of like journey side of it, or is it just R&B stuff that the people could follow for you?
Very, very soon. The film side is for me more from a producing side.
Mm-hmm.
So my background from profession outside of music is barbering, and I cut hair. I got out of high school and was like, hey, I want to survive, but I don't want to be taken away from my music too much. So I picked up barbering as a trade, just so I can have the flexibility and time to be able to still, pay attention to what I love, but then, feed myself and my family. But within cutting hair, I didn't know how resourceful it was, you know, until I actually moved to California, and I realized, like, man, like the fact that there were people that I cut hair in Rochester that played a pivotal point in my career, even in LA. Before I
Yeah.
even thought about moving to LA, I cut people's hair, and from all walks of life, like everyone needs a haircut. So, and once I got out here, like you mentioned, music is super dope. Music is, if you're blessed to be one of the artists that reach, to where you're a A-list status and you're making good money, cool. But in a realistic world, you know, you have to be able to capitalize on whatever your window is. If you're an artist and you catch a window, and I realize that coming to LA, a lot of these musicians, a lot of these artists, they don't have money. They don't really have the finances
Right.
that
Right.
people think
It's
they
all
have.
rented. It's all rented and for show for that music video or for what and I'm
Yeah,
sure you know even more so now that music videos are just like making a movie, you know what I mean? You
yeah.
you bring in props and wardrobe and everything else, none of it's real. It's all
Which is
just kind of smoke and mirrors, you know?
yeah, which is necessary. You know what I mean? Like you're not
It
when you
is.
make
It's
a movie,
entertainment.
that's all it is. It's still 90% business. It's about
Yeah.
making money. It's like, okay, look it, But, you know, there are a lot of successful people out here, and it isn't all smoke and mirrors,
And yeah, no, and it's about sustainability, like you said. You know what I mean? In LA, you can find work as a singer songwriter and as a musician a lot easier than you could in Rochester, New York. And you can find enough to where it's sustainable to where you can continuously follow your dreams, live your passion, while providing for your family. And it's not like a this or that. You know what I mean? Like that's one big thing I've noticed about people that take the plunge and go to Atlanta or LA or Chicago or wherever where there's more consistent work is that it's a different level of success. You know what I mean? It's not that they're more famous. It's not that they're really anything of the sort. It's just that they have a little bit more opportunity and they're able to execute on those opportunities a little bit more so than someone like that has to take time off of their 9 to 5 job to because this big old project came into town, or this guy put me in touch with someone who wants me to write something for him that I got to hit this deadline, so I got to take off work. You know what I mean? It creates these more realistic situations for someone like yourself that has a bunch of talents to be
yeah,
able to capitalize on and monetize,
yep. And
Do
that's
you,
the key thing. I feel like being a successful artist, no matter what, whether you're in music, whether you're in film, whether you're an athlete, it's more so understanding that your status is a tool. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people sometimes have a hammer in one hand and not necessarily know how to use the hammer. So it's just like it isn't a hammer just isn't for tapping the nail in lightly. Sometimes you can knock the whole wall down with the hammer if you're smart enough to do it.
yeah.
So I learned very quickly that my perception living in Rochester of what an artist is and should be is very different than living in LA. And I learned that being an artist is no different than me being a barber. It's a tool. I'm utilizing my relationships that I built with people over the years, cutting their hair, and I use it to get to the next step. You know, and
Yeah.
that's not in a vindictive way, but it's like, okay, the whole point in life is to move forward. So if you have a platform where your voice is allowed to be heard, at some point you have to capitalize on the fact that like people will listen, people will take the meetings, people will allow you to have access to things that normal people in different settings don't. So if you
Yeah.
don't understand that those doors are available to you in that time, sometimes you'll miss out on a lot. So
So
me just
yeah, Trent. So it's interesting, like that particular point that you're making there, because both you and your brother have that same attitude, and a lot of people that we have on the show, I like that theme always comes up of like, the who do you think you are that you could be, your brother to be the champion? Who do you think you are? Like we had the Aaron, the owner of Crudco Skate Shop, that you can just open up a skateboard shop and that's what you could do for a living. Like the gall of you to think that, and it's those people that have this vision that is kind of unwavering in the absurdity of what it is they're trying to do, so to speak, right? I've always had this attitude, and I find it in other people that are doing things like that. Of like, if other people have been able to do it, why would I not be able to do it? And then
If
the second
anyone, why not me? Yeah.
yeah. Well, the
yeah,
second thing is then realizing that there's not necessarily some magical potion that they have, or something. I mean, there's talented, born in talent as well that can assist. But learning like the business side of it, and
It's a lot of
putting
hard work.
the work to get there is a huge part of it. And you kind of you touched on, what was the point I was trying to make there? You touched on like doing the barbershop thing. I remember working at Starbucks when I was younger as a supervisor at Starbucks, but it was my favorite job because you know who comes into Starbucks? People that have expendable income. And the people that have expendable income are usually people that are somewhat successful, and they're from, like you said, all walks of life. And I was doing it in New York City. So I had people coming in and out of there
yeah,
where, a lot of people that I worked with hated the job. They would come in just miserable and wouldn't really talk to anyone, etc. But I took it as an opportunity to kind of like network with people, just same as you, like the barbershop thing, right? You can think of these things as either a prison, or you can think of them as the land of opportunity, right?
Hmm.
And you have the ability to network in a situation where you're a barber, and you're literally touching someone's head. I mean, you're as intimate kind of as you can be with some stranger. So obviously, to make it comfortable, you start talking, right? And you break the ice. What do you do? Blah blah blah. And it's obviously paid off for you. And the reason I want to emphasize that a little bit is because I think some of the younger kids that see the jobs that they're in as oh, I'm only making whatever amount of money, and it's just paying the bills, and I'm meant to do this, and they have dreams that are bigger, than where they are now, or different than where they are now. You can use things like working in a coffee shop, or working as a barber, to network and meet people, and potentially, because I found that in every sense of business, networking is a giant part of success. Being able to talk to people and foster relationships and not be a dick as you're coming up in the ranks of things, goes a long way.
yeah,
And being appreciative. So
I find I find that networking, the biggest part of it is really the not only the connections you're making with other people, but the future connections that you're going to create for other people. You know what I mean? Like not necessarily in a sense that like when I met Patrick, I thought that I was going to introduce him to Trent, but in that sense that now that you two are connected, you're both musicians. You very well may end up going on to make music together. You may very well not, but at
yeah,
the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like that level of networking, that unexpected connection that you'll connect two people that are a perfect fit together that would have not,
hmm
you're their degree of separation that wouldn't have normally existed had you not put yourself out there and got to know both of them independently on separate terms. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
That's always the part of networking that really really fascinates me, and it's the part of like filmmaking and being a producer on set and kind of being involved with that I love. You know what I mean? It's that why I know exactly who to go to at what time and under what circumstances to not necessarily get them to bend and mold to what I need them to do, but to where it's convenient for us to now be in business together. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? That right there is the part of networking that I learned from probably Verizon back when I used to work for them, that really kind of opened up doors for me as far as realizing that, well, now that I know you, you may be doing something or into something that's never going to help me. But I know 3 other guys that are into that as well, and you don't
Yeah.
know them. So let me introduce you guys and see what happens. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's where magic really happens. A lot of stories I hear about,
Well,
groups and bands and,
I want to
you
ask
know,
something to
yeah.
Trent too about this. So I know you grew up in Rochester, right, your entire life before, and is LA the first place out of Rochester that you moved to, or did you live in?
I lived in Florida. I'm actually born in Ithaca, New York.
Oh, okay. I lived
Um,
there for a year myself.
yeah. So I'm born there, raised in Rochester. Before I moved to Rochester when I was 5 years old, and prior to that, I lived in Tampa. So it's Ithaca, Tampa, Rochester, most of my life, and then 5 years ago, Los Angeles.
So
Oh, 5 years you've been there.
you were obviously doing music in Rochester, right, as
Mhm.
well, and then you moved out to LA. Did you
Yep.
kind of just move out there like, hey, I've got first and last month's rent, and let's see what happens, or did you have a plan? And then secondly, like, what's the things you learned going from like the Rochester music scene? You know, the biggest difference is kind of the Rochester music scene to obviously LA is kind of an epicenter of, entertainment too.
Um. So, uh, what was the first question you asked? Yeah,
Um,
just real quick. I want to get in order. I don't want to
Yeah,
fumble
so when you moved right from Rochester
up.
to LA, um, I guess the real question is just what is the difference between the music scene here in Rochester and then the music scene out in LA, and then what do you think the biggest kind of differences are, and did you learn anything that might be beneficial to someone you know thinking of doing it
Um.
there? And the first question I asked you was, did you have a plan, or was it just like, hey, I got, $50 and a bus ticket, and I'm going out there, and we'll see what happens.
I had somewhat of a plan. Um, First time I was in LA, I had a quick business trip out here, music related. First time on a plane. First time, that far away from home. Just a potential a guy that was, wanted to manage the group at the time. We had broke up at this point, and so he was like, "Hey, I already have some plan. You're more than welcome to tag along." I said, "Let's go." So literally, like within the first day of me being in LA, I was like, "I don't know what I have to do, but I'm a big car fanatic, so I just was like, there's no way I can't live in a place where I can see Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Porsches on a regular basis." So
Mhm.
I was like super amped, and I got back and I was like, yo, I gotta go. So it actually happened in increments. So I came 3 days, and then about a year later, I came for a week, rented a car, and just drove around LA. Literally, I just stayed with a homie that I knew, and just didn't come for music. I just came more so like, just let me drive around, see who I can meet, whatever. 6 months later, came for a month. 6 months later, came for 2 months. A year later, moved. So it happened, and I
Yeah.
kind of came out, set myself up. I'm all for the like, yo, drop everything and run. And I actually encouraged quite a few of my friends to do it, only because they didn't have any responsibilities, outside of just
Do you
work.
know do you know True Star by any chance? You know him? He's from
No.
Rochester. I think he just moved. Oh no, you know what? I think he might be in Arizona. I thought he moved to LA. But anyway,
But
sorry.
no, it's all good. But that was like how that, and I had a kid, so I couldn't just, I have a kid. I didn't have him,
Yeah.
at the
You
time.
helped. Hey, you did the biggest part. All right. In the whole thing. I
So
got
I
two
was
kids
kind of,
myself, Trent. I know the job.
I mean, look, it's hard. It was very, very hard. I was blessed to have, a counterpart. His mother was, understanding and supportive. But I just knew that, you know, me and her saw, we had two different visions of where we wanted to go in life. And I just felt like I couldn't take a chance on not being able to give, my son the tools that he needed. I at least wanted to give it a fair opportunity to say, you know what, if I'm going to say that I want to do something, if I'm going to say that I am something or whatever, I at least want to give my son the opportunity to say, at least if it doesn't happen, it's cool, but at least I tried,
Yeah.
and um,
Hmm.
so that's kind of like how the transition took place. Um, Once I got here, I was kind of already acclimated from visiting so frequently. but uh, it was definitely challenging because when you get to LA, everything feels like it's like everything that you want feels like it's 5 feet away from you every day. Because people are so accessible and everything's right there. And I literally like started working a week after I got here. I got a job working in a barbershop in Beverly Hills. So like every single day I was around people and I'm people coming into the barbershop. I'm like, oh shit, that's such and such, or that's such and such. And it's just like every day you feel so close. And um and it has like this like kind of drug depressing effect because it's like, you have the high of shit, like it's right there. But then again, the depressing moment comes in is like, shit, I really got to do the work, you know? And it doesn't happen overnight. And people don't just, you know, give you an opportunity. So, um, which I think is the great part, because the more people I met that I actually were in position to help me, the more they required of me, So the more they required me to show that I'm worthy of. There's 100 people trying to do it. There's thousands of people trying to be an
Yeah.
actor, thousands of people trying to be a singer. So it's like, if I'm, it almost in the essence that it doesn't seem fair. It is fair, and it's like, okay, here's one person that could change a lot of people's lives. Like, how do you be that person and decide whose life you want to change?
Right.
That comes with time. That comes with you testing a person. It's just like having a child. You just don't give your child everything when they turn 5. You don't give them their license. It's like, no, they have to earn it. They have to pass the test. They have to go through. They have to bring things to the table. You have to be able to say, whatever I'm about to give you, I have to know that even if I'm not holding your hand, you can take it and stand on your own 2 feet.
And be responsible. Yeah.
And this level of success, you know, the talent part is the dopest part about being from Rochester. I was never intimidated talent wise because LA, you realize that you're not that far off. Like when you're in the studio with the people you look up to or around the producers that you know about that make the movies or the directors or other musicians, you're like, I can do this.
They're
Oh,
normal. They're humans. Just you realize how human they are, and they become
it's
like,
just they've had a few more masters around them helping them sharpen their tools. And
mhm.
it's more so about how they execute than anything. It's like the talent is the same, but it's like they've been taught how to execute differently. And that's what I think really separates the Rochester as opposed to an LA, like a smaller town. It's like out here you have people that have gotten to that height, and in return, the the knowledge falls back down. But unfortunately, it's like apples falling from a tree. Like every once in a while, you'll get an apple that rolls kind of far, and it's like, oh shit, like I found the apple, but the tree is over there. But most of the apples fall next to the tree. So if that's the tree you want to be a part of, common sense to say, well, let me get closer to the tree so I can try to get an apple that falls closer because there's not too many that roll far, and it does happen every once in a blue moon. But I'd be more, you know, I would hope to get an apple if I was closer to the tree, So I
Yeah.
felt like LA is kind of like that, and
LA is the tree. Rochester is the maybe an apple here and there.
So,
yeah.
but what's interesting about that too is because a lot of people in the smaller towns. I had this discussion with my little brother once. Like he wanted to move out because he's a coder and he's really
Mhm.
into that whole thing, and wanted to start a coding company and things. And he wanted to move out to Silicon Valley and all that. I'm like, why can't see? It's not LA that's the secret sauce, right? It's the people that are there that are, like you said, executing, right?
Mhm.
Um, and why can't Rochester be that next Silicon Valley, right? Right? Why can't you start that company here and do that here?
Yep.
It's not LA that's the magic sauce. The soil isn't, so different that it's going to produce, some magical thing that's going to make you a millionaire. It's you still got to do the same thing that they're doing in Silicon Valley to make those millions. Same thing in LA and New York and wherever you go for entertainment. I like what you were saying about being so close to it, and it can make you either um, it can make people. I hate using the term haters, but it can turn people into into like, well, they have it and I don't. Why don't I have it? And then there's some jealousy that comes into that. And then you never actually wonder, all right, why is it they're successful at it? And examine what it is you're doing that you need to change, or how to execute better. You need to look at them and learn how to execute better, right? I think what's really cool about LA, what I like about LA, is the fact that you're so it's Pharoah Monch, a rapper from Queens, has this line in one of his latest songs where um, I figured out a new meaning to to the word. Surround yourself with greatness. I found myself standing in a room full of mirrors, like
Yeah.
like as you see, like people that are doing better than you. I
Hmm.
think you need to surround yourself not with people that are on the same level than you, but then with people that are at that next level or 10 levels above you, so that you
Absolutely.
can look at yourself and say, what am I not doing? That if that's where I want to be, if that's the position I want to be in,
Hmm.
obviously they've done something to get there that I have yet to do. So
Yep.
let me examine that. Let me look in the mirror a little bit and figure out what it is that they've done to get to that. And I think what the culture shock can be, and you can tell me if this is true or not, because I've never moved to LA, but I actually moved from New York City to
Hmm.
Rochester. I kind of made the opposite jump from giant city to
Right.
smaller city, right? Um, but I think what the culture shock can be is that um, it's it's not you move to LA and it magically happens, right? There's you still have to do the work, whether you're in Rochester or you're in LA. What I know is that the cost of living in New York City and LA is significantly more than than Rochester. So I'm like, well, I know it's going to take to go get where I need to go. I'd rather do it where the rents and the mortgages are a little bit cheaper, and then I'll fly out to LA and go to New York if I need to. If I
Got
need.
I got a guy when a life coach I met when I first moved out here. We had a quick conversation. He was like, "Okay, you got to get head on your shoulders, man." He was like, "My only advice is, um, gave me some things that he recommended me to do, just organizing, prioritizing." And he was like, "This is the thing about LA. A lot of people come to LA with hopes and dreams, but it's like anything. The more you put your energy into something, and to perfect that particular craft, the quicker the quicker the response comes, the more energy you give it." And he was like, so many people move here for one thing and they get so consumed with trying to survive, and they end up working a job, and then next thing you know, they're working 3 jobs, and then that goes from the first 2 years, and then that turns into five, and then that five turns into seven, the seven turns into 10. And it's like, damn, I've been here for 10 years and I haven't even been able to give what I moved here for, that the fair amount of attention like
Yeah.
that's required for me to even step in this arena to be effective. Like, I'm expecting to be effective and I'm only giving what I love 10%. So he said, if you can find a way to balance it out to where it's like you're not so focused on having everything you see people around you have, you know you don't necessarily need, if it's just you, if you have to do a roommate situation for 3 years, fine. But if that allocates, allows you to open up your finances to where it's like, okay, cool, I pay my little room, I got this, but I can still give my craft the time that is necessary. You sacrifice having the nice car, having the super nice, comfortable apartment, and then over time you'll start to see the things that you want come because you've given that particular area, you know, the attention that it deserves, and I tell a lot of people like, man, LA's so expensive. I'm like, well, there's millions of people that live here, so they figure it out. Like, it's not, it's not gonna kill you. And home, you can always go home, but um that's also part of sacrifice, and that's part of you giving up the good things for the great things. And not everybody, and you don't always have to do that, and everybody's journey is, some people do come here and in a year they smack. Some people come here for 20 years and then don't hit till they 20 years. But it's all about how much are you willing to fight for what you truly, truly love, and to know that because you don't know when it's going to happen, you have to be willing to stick in there and fight it out. You know what I mean? No matter how long it takes for you to
Yeah,
be able to get whatever
and
reward you're looking for.
I think especially with music too, it's everyone. everyone sees the you know, the breakthrough strong or song that comes
Yep.
out, right? That brings someone to the public eye or whatever, that makes them all the money,
I'm listening.
and they don't see the, you know, the the 600 songs that were written before that to hone the craft up until the point where they were able to get someone to actually listen to it, and then that person that listened to it was like, oh, that's really good, let me give you an opportunity even though it's small. And I think that, you know, the overnight success thing, a lot of people say that, especially you know, musicians, these overnight successes one hit wonders or whatever took, you know, 20 years to get to that point,
Yeah.
right? It was
Right.
your growing up in Rochester around these amazing, talented Rochester musicians that helped you hone the actual music side of you, right? Because I've been to LA a lot too. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen, right, that are selling you a magic bag of beans for, I'll put you in this movie, or I'll do this. It's just, you know, you got to do it for free, or you've got to sign away everything on this in this contract to me, so that you don't own anything or you don't make any money off of it. And I think that
Those are those are all the things we actually all like know now. You know, it's like those things aren't rocket science. Like you move to a competitive place, it's a competitive place. And your
Yeah.
mindset has to be, you have to expect those things, you know. And I think sometimes people have an unrealistic way of thinking that because I'm a good person and because I would do business this way, that this place should operate like that. And it's just like, well, it's a lot easier when you're in a smaller market and you got 10 people trying to split $1. But then when you're in a place like LA and there's 1,000 people trying to split the dollar, how much of good business do you actually think is going to take place? You know what I mean? So it's just you understanding that those obstacles are in front of you, and then you also accepting it. Like that's just the way it is. Now, it's my job to be a good person and say, I'm going to find the loopholes through the hard work, and I'm going to find the right people where I can be a beacon of change for that, you know. And that's kind of like how it is what it is, you know. It's like you going racing around in street cars, and then you're going to Formula One, and it's like, well, people in Formula One make $30 million a year, and it's like, well, what do you expect making $30 million a year? You expect it to be just as easy as it was racing street cars? No, you got brands, you got corporate companies, you want
you got
sponsors
employees.
that fighting for number one spots, just like the grocery store. We pay for our shit to be here, you know. And if you can't pay to play, you know, so it's just like you
And
can't let those things be discouraging. You just have to find
So
ways
can
around.
I'm gonna
and just to give perspective to listeners, we're talking like Rochester, New York is a city population of 200,000 people. LA, according to the 2018 census, is sitting at 3.99 million people. So we're talking about a market difference of like 8,000%. You know what I mean? Like we're talking like a
Did you do the
major
math? I don't think you
difference.
did the math on that, did you?
I don't hold me that. Shut up. But but what I'm trying to say is like your point about, you know, going to LA. You know what I mean? You don't move to LA in a cutthroat business and then stick your neck out for people. You know what I mean? You go there with the expectation that everybody's trying to get what I got, and everyone's already got what I should have got 5 years ago. Like most people that I know that move to LA from the East Coast, that's the mindset they go in with it, and they either sink or swim real fucking quick. Like, you know what I mean? They either excel and they stay out there, they find the level of success that's you know, substantial to them, and they keep going with it to either hit those bigger strides or to take the smaller strides in motion, or they're like, nah man, LA's whack, it gets cold there at night. Like, they come back with some whack excuse about why they're back and
Well,
how they're
people,
back.
I think though Biz, people can get easily discouraged. I mean,
Oh, for
it
sure,
takes
for sure.
a certain amount of like um, stick to itiveness, like a certain like
I think it's
it's a vision.
expectation.
It's a vision that's like, I know this is absurd, but but I know I'm able
I'm
to
capable.
I'm
Yeah,
capable of doing this, so
yeah.
I'm going to pursue it. And a lot of people give up on that, and which is why sometimes people living in big cities, or they move to some place where there's a lot of this. And in LA, it's like the magic land. I mean, it's always sunny and kind of warm there. It's like you said, it's like a drug there, right?
It's always
You
hardest
can
right
just
before the breakthrough,
you can
too.
just
You know
go
what I
down
mean?
to Rodeo Drive and just walk Rodeo Drive during the day, and you see, I think I went into, because my daughter was really into oh, what the heck is it? Is it Gucci? I think there's a Gucci store. I think that's what she wanted to go into. And she's like, I never been to a Gucci store. So I'm like, all right, I'll take you in there. So we went up there and we went in there, and Timberland was in there. So you walk around and you see this, and then you go home, and especially if you're in LA, you're not living, if you just move there and you're not making tons of money, you're not living in a fancy ass house, two brand new cars, and so you see all this wealth there in front of you,
Yep.
and this success, and it's a mirror to what maybe you feel as though you're not capable of. I don't know. I think that the successful people, and I see this in the way that you talk, Trent, and your brother too is the same way. I think that it's your family in general probably has this this kind of I don't know, environment, or the culture within your family is like this. And I find that in a lot of successful people, that you have the business sense, which is ultra important. And then, like you said, you grew up in Rochester with just killers in terms of music, right?
Yeah.
That are coming out of here. So you've got almost like a leg up. You've got the business sense. You've got talent, and you've been challenged talent wise probably in Rochester, probably more so sometimes than even in LA. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
there's good
Absolutely.
people,
100%.
good musicians, talented people out there, but I think that you've got the makings of someone that can be really ultra successful, and whether that means being I don't know who's a big R&B right now, Usher. Do you dance too? Do you ever
Usher,
dance, Trent, or no?
did you really just drop Usher
I
trying to
did
be
say Usher.
relevant? Like, stop. Like, Usher was featured in a
Do you,
song I think last year I heard, but like even that, I was like, damn, Usher for
no,
real? You still got it?
I don't hear a lot of R&B right now. But what I'm saying is, I'm trying to pay you a compliment. Is that
I appreciate it, man.
you've
I
got you've
appreciate
got the business sense, and you've got obviously the talent. So I have hope that you're gonna make it. I mean, what do you? And when I say make it, I don't mean like you're gonna be, like I said, Usher.
There's no
But
there,
it's
yeah,
like whatever
that's a perception thing. It's
the
a
level of
make it
success, like
is.
what do you think, what do you consider like a level of success? Like, I think I asked your brother this too, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years, let's say, if you were to go to plan,
definitely, in a I always look at giving back. In a very, very, very in 5 years, I definitely see myself in a very, very heavy position where I'm able to give back and really help people financially, from a status and access standpoint of view, being that guy, like the go-to
Yeah.
guy. But I think people from Rochester, even the people that are listening, man, you got to give yourselves credit. Like I've met at least 30 people randomly in LA from Rochester, extremely successful. I mean, like not just, hey, dope, I do this. Like I'm talking about like very, very wealthy people. And it's like, their stories are like, and this is what kind of like, you know, especially it drove me because I worked a lot with kids before I left, Rochester, with the In Control program. They were a big help to me, in my career, starting off in high school and stuff. So
what was the name of it again?
the In Control program, it's like a teen outreach program.
Is that
Um,
still in existence now?
yeah, I think so. It still
Is that the
exists.
one that Johnny was talking about?
Um,
Possibly.
I think
I'm
it
not sure,
was.
Huh.
but the biggest thing that I noticed about everybody that I met from out here that were from Rochester, none of them, they all said they never went back home. Like every single one of them was like, and I'm like, yo, man, you get a chance to go back and visit. They're like, fuck no, like, like how could you, look at the weather, look at this, and it's just like, you know, there was a big part of me that, wants to give back. And then, but I learned when I, about a second year, that's why I got into to producing. I took a liking to producing because I wanted to figure out what was a good way to come back and legitly help people, not from a just giving people money, but more so of a creating opportunity. And I feel like music is very like vague. It's like, okay, I'm helping music people, and it's like, okay, a couple musicians, a couple singers, whatever. But how do you help everybody? And I feel like film kind of encompasses everyone from, when you got you know what I'm talking about, Biz, because you got a
Oh, yeah.
production, you got, lights, you got cameras, you got, food, you got
Locations department,
hey,
casting. Yeah.
there's thousands of people that get paid off of, one budget of a movie. So to me, I was like, man, like I'd love to somehow go back and, you know, not introduce because it already exists, but more so be the bridge to bringing more high-end film projects on a regular basis to Rochester. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of like what got me into like the side thing, and it's just even now I'm currently working on producing my first movie to actually come back, and it's going to be filmed in Rochester.
Hmm.
That's,
Do you have a tentative date? Like what time frame you're trying to get it shot here?
Pre-COVID, we had I was in the process of having it sold to a licensing company.
That's fantastic.
But it changed once we got our line producer involved. So line producers, he's worked on like ton of projects, a lot of big projects.
Out of Rochester or out of LA?
He's from New York, but he lives out here now.
Okay.
But the writer is from New York City. It's a guy that, it's funny that the guy that I'm working on my first movie was the same guy who actually brought me to LA. So it's funny how like you don't know how God is moving in your life and planting seeds early in your life,
Bro, for real, like we talked about this right before we started recording, that Shay Holloway is literally just like that. He got me my very first paid acting gig, and like I said, he even recently got me an interview with that LA company. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of the person in my career so far that has never stopped giving, and that I had, you know what I mean? He was, again, another random person I went to high school with. You know what I mean? He graduated 2 years after me. I barely talked to him when we were in school. You know what I mean? Like it's just and I met you in what, 8th grade at Monroe. Ended up seeing you again at school. The amount of times that you and I have linked up and connected and had similarities is crazy to me.
I have kind of a question about that. So I grew up in, like I said, in Queens, right? But it wasn't my dad was a sanitation worker, right? I didn't grow up in my mom was a kind of a receptionist at New York Hospital. So it wasn't like my dad was a musician, but he wasn't like, that wasn't his full-time gig. So I wonder how much like your circles and the people you interact with like play into that. So the reason I bring that up is because you just started talking about, friends of yours doing this or that. I was watching Adam Sandler had that comedy special that just came out a couple of months ago, I think, on Netflix. I was like, I'll watch it. I was bored one day. So I watched it to the end, and then the credits started rolling up, and I normally don't look, you as an actor may look a little bit at it, but one of the first things, the producer comes up, and this guy Paul Sato, who was like part of our small group of friends that used to all hang out. He had moved out to LA, so he was one of the 3 producers of that special. I was like, oh shit, Paul Sato, no shit. And I was like, I wonder if that's the Paul Sato, because it's a weird name to be like,
it's a little unique,
randomly in there. And sure as shit, it was him. I was like, dude, you fucking produce Adam Sandler's fucking comedy special. And then another friend of mine, these guys are both out in LA. If you look them up, if you want to write down their names, because you're in the film thing. Biet Simkin. I used to go over her house all the time and drink vodka with her father. She's Russian, and but she was just on. She started this whole meditation thing, and she has I think she has a podcast or something that she does out there, but she was just on Russell Brand's podcast recently. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like all my friends are suddenly like in the
I keep forgetting he has a podcast. Like he's the most random person to be a podcast. So
right.
I gotta say, I gotta listen to an episode just so I can hear him.
He's a fucking
going off.
He's a weirdo. But like there's something about, I think, like the people that you interact with, because I always find myself in these circles of people that are ultra creative and doing interesting shit. And I don't know if I'm seeking it out, or it's just we're getting drawn to each other in some way. Um,
Mhm.
but I find it interesting because you don't. Whenever I'm around people, I guess that are not in those circles, it's
Hmm.
definitely a different vibe that's going on. There's a
Like
lot,
moths to a flame, baby.
yeah. There's like a lot less discussion on creating. I always find myself when I'm hanging out with the people I tend to get drawn to and I'm interested in having relationships with. Um, they have a general interest in like creativity. They're semi business minded. They're interested in like um, how do I get my voice out uh, to people? How do I
Yep.
succeed on the level? Like it's never a mindset of like, um, oh, these people got handed it. They always seem to be happier. They always seem to like not have like a jealous atmosphere around like, oh, this person just has that because they got handed it
They got
and
lucky.
they have this work ethic and um, I wonder where that comes from. Like Trent, because
It
you,
comes from
yeah,
it
go ahead.
comes from being in it. It comes from being in it and understanding that it isn't luck. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there is a portion of luck, but it's what your mind wills. Like you're thinking about this stuff, you're working towards it every day, and it's energy, it's the universe, and you're attracting it. But once you're in it, you do realize the level of hard work that goes into it. So you're less judgmental of other people and about what they have, and you're more respectful of the fact that like I'm glad I didn't have to go through it the way you did because
Right. Yeah. I said this to your brother last week is that, you know what I mean? If you saw the road it took to get to the top of the mountain, you wouldn't be envious of me standing on top of the mountain right now. You would be like, bro, no way could I have gone through what you did to get to what you got to.
there's people out here. I'm like people that you hear and it's like, yeah, man, I was sleeping on this street. But I'm like, there's no way I'll be back in Rochester before I sleep on the street. But what someone else is willing to sacrifice or give up or go through to accomplish their goal, like you have to have a level of respect for them.
And same goes for you. I'm sure, you know what I mean? There's sacrifices that you made. I'm sure that some people would be like, never in a million years could I have done that. You know what I mean? It's everyone's at a different level. You know what I mean? That's when
Absolutely.
a lot of people, especially being in Rochester, I've had my fair share, like, not to toot my own horn, but if you throw my name in Google, I show up as a film actor now. You know what I mean? I was showing up as an author before, which I was like,
Oh,
that's cool, but you know what I mean? That's not what I consider myself. I wrote a book. Like, I don't want this to be what I'm known as. And I
right.
finally switched over to film actor recently as of a couple other, credits I got. And the change in it kind of made it a little bit, what do I want to say, like, it gave me a little bit of a boost, you know what I mean? A little bit of a confidence boost in the sense of like, this is what I'm trying to do. This is a step in the right direction,
all
Mm-hmm.
those
you
all
know.
those little victories are where it's at. Like those little.
Exactly. 'Cause you know what I mean? You make so many sacrifices. Like, sacrifice becomes so consistent when you're
Trent,
following your passions and dreams.
Trent, can I ask you something? Actually, semi personal. You don't have to answer, but you,
Oh,
you
good.
you mentioned something earlier that was interesting to me because I kind of um, I'm thinking I did a similar thing. Like you said, you wanted to have the tools, right, for when your
Mhm.
kid was born, right? You wanted to have the tools to say at least you tried, right? Do you
Yeah.
think that played a factor in? Did that play a factor like in your relationship? And what the reason I'm asking that is because I think we had a couple of I've had a couple of conversations with entrepreneurs and like what it takes to own a business or to really go after something. Like it needs to be the priority for a while, and it can be the long term goal of I want my kid to see that this is the amount of work and sacrifice it takes to get to this point.
Mhm.
And I've done this and be an example, right? Even if that's at the sacrifice of my relationship, um, because uh, we're guys here, and quite frankly, a relationship takes a lot of time.
Absolutely.
Girls want your time primarily, and that's
Children,
understandable.
children too. Children
Well,
want a lot of your
children as
time.
well, yes.
I
But
feel
what
like
I'm saying is
that's the more important part
a
sometimes is that
success
children do.
a successful relationship and a successful career in something that takes an enormous amount of your time are at odds with each other. And so sometimes you need to choose career over relationship, unfortunately. And if you don't have the understanding of the person on the other side, that can be a problem.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think that was me. That's the reason I say that, Trent. Not that I have any insight into any of your your relationships or
No, no,
anything,
no.
but like I think that was kind of the downfall of my
Your
marriage
your
to
first marriage, we'll
yeah
call it.
my first we'll say that
I'm just kidding.
my
I'm
my
just kidding.
my first ex-wife. But
He's only got
well,
one. He's only
yeah,
got one.
yeah. But like was that I made the decision like when my kids were born, it kind of put things into perspective. Like I need to pursue. I can't just go to work every day at a 9 to 5. Like there are things I want to put out into the world. I can't, like there's a certain like
A level of success you want to be for your
well,
kids to
no, there's like
perceive.
it emphasized the finiteness of life and like what I want to be as an example for my kids. I don't
Right.
want I don't want to be someone the guy that was like, oh, I just gave up on my dreams so that
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I do want to provide for my kids, and which I do, and put a house and do all that stuff. But
Absolutely.
it takes that extra amount of effort to also go for your passion, and
Right,
and
right.
Go
whether or
ahead.
not
Okay.
you choose to plead the fifth on that is up to you. But
Um, I think there's two different topics in that saying. One is relationships with a, which is a whole, you know, thing within itself, and then the other one is career. And I think, that really boils down to a person's specific journey, and where God needs them to be in their lives. But what I've learned, what I've been blessed to be around a lot of successful people, and um, not even just as a witness to when you have that kind of success and whatever it is, whether it's being an entrepreneur or, whatever dream you have, what I've learned to value is family. And because I've met so many successful people to where I've also been able to see people who aren't even able to enjoy the fruits of their labor because they've isolated it around only hard work and only, it's like this has to be a balance of, you know, of uh of everything in your life. You know what I'm saying? Just as much as so many successful people that you meet out here just to tell you like, yo, don't forget to live. Yeah, I have a nice house. Yeah, I did this, but there were times in my life that I wish I could have, I wish I did take that trip, and
Mhm.
hung out for those 3 days with my friends and have a good time, and yes, I did stay at work, and yes, I did sacrifice, but my I was gonna get where I was gonna go
You can't
regardless.
forget to be in the moment, trying to always
but
worry about that future, man.
Yeah,
do you think that's true though, Trent? Or
and
do you think they're looking at it from a place of regret after reaching that level? You know what I'm
I think
saying?
it's, it's a place of wisdom after reaching the level because you realize like, man, what really matters in this world. When you think about success, most people equate success with materialistic things, you know.
Right.
Um, and they say, well, now that I got the house, or now that I'm able to send my kids to college, and now that I do this and now I do that, and it's like, okay, once you get there, it's like, damn, I got everything, but life still has to happen. You still have to have a relationship. You still have to have those things. Now, I do think that on your goal to getting where you have to go, it is extremely important to be equally yoked with your counterpart, whoever that be, and that whether that's your teammates, whether that's your business partner, whether that's your significant other, because their role is detrimental in you getting to where you have to go. And if they're not supportive, or if they're not understanding, or if they don't understand the vision that you have, then that's just as much of a negative thing. You get what I'm saying? So like
Yep.
Yeah.
it plays hand in hand. It's like, yes, I do need to be 100% focused on my vision, and nothing can come in the way of that. Not even a relationship. But on the way to that, I need to make sure that the people that I do choose to share that time with, that I do choose to balance my time out with, that they're in at least the same car as me, going in the same
Yeah,
direction.
I
And I
think
think
that's
like,
great.
Right.
Yeah,
and
and I
that's a
think
hard thing for people to do, because it's like, man, like I love this person, but they're not there. It's like even with kid, mine is more for me. It was a kid thing, it's like, man, I love being a dad. Like I love the idea of being a dad. It was scary at first, but I fell in love with it. And you know, but and then there's balance. It's like as a man, I have to go provide for you, because when you become a man, you're gonna look back and say, well, dad, you know, can you help me? And it's like, well, it'd be nice if I had tools for you, Now
yeah.
it's just balance. It's like I'm
Or
not.
even insight, you know what I mean? Like even not necessarily tools, just insight that I've been through this. I followed my dreams, and this is what you can expect. You know what I mean? You may find success out there, but you may sacrifice those early years. You could have had a family and a kid with, you know what I mean? Like even like you said, you know what I mean? There's always something you can take away from it after you've at least tried, you
Absolutely.
know?
And you have to we all have to give up something for something we want. Nothing is free. Like whether
Yeah.
it's time, whether it's relationship or whatever, relationships for musicians and actors and people and suck. It is what it is. Like it's so hard because, you know, if you take all of that away, we're still human beings. We still desire, to be with someone else. So that's a natural part of our being
Right.
to be with that, but not everyone is called to do certain things. So if you feel in your life you're called to accomplish a certain mission and you're not going to feel complete, sacrificing the luxuries of having someone to go home to at night, those are things you have to, that doesn't mean you're not going to ever have it. It just means that there's a particular job that you have to accomplish before you get that, And when you finish your mission, guess what? Those things will most likely fall in place at the right time. Because the worst thing is having the wrong person around on the ride because it makes
Yeah.
it longer. It
Well,
makes it
I think that's what I was kind of getting at, Trent, right? Because
Mhm.
you it takes a certain amount of I don't like the word selfishness, but a certain amount of selfishness to know that unless I do this thing that I know I want to do, um, I'm not going to be happy. And if I don't pursue that, then
Mhm.
I'm going to resent the person or the people around me that are preventing me from doing the thing that makes me happy. And if you're
Yep.
not on board with that, then what will happen is this slow resentment of this other person is not along for this ride, and that's perfectly fine. And I think um,
Mhm.
it's difficult as an entrepreneur, as someone that's seriously pursuing a career in the entertainment field, um,
Absolutely.
to find a partner on either side, girl or guy, that's willing to put
We're
up with what it takes to make that actually successful. And I 100% agree with you. Having someone there is 100%. I mean, it's like the world of difference when you have someone there supporting you versus not. Because I've been on both sides of that.
perception.
Yeah.
It's perception. It's just training your mind to think. Like, man, okay. I think most of us get bent up on. For a while, I was bent off on this one specific person believing in me, and it's just like, it's how do you look at the glass? It's half empty. It's half full. I got one person that's saying I don't believe in you, but when I turn to my right, there's 50 people cheering me on, and
Right.
it's just like, so many people want that validation from the one person, but maybe it's not meant for you to have that. Maybe it's meant for you to turn around and get the motivation from the people that are clapping you on and are, what I'm saying, pushing you, So
Well, that's I
I'll
think.
be honest with you. I feel like that in itself is kind of what stops people from taking entertainment and taking their dreams seriously, is that unfortunately that person is a parent early on in their lives. You know what I mean? That
yep.
doesn't know how to nurture them without destroying them. You know what I mean? A lot of people tell their kids like, oh, well, you're not going to be a singer. No, you're not going to grow
Well,
up to be an actor. You know
here's
what
the
I mean? That's
Biz, I don't want to put the blame on anyone else. What's happening is the person that's pursuing it, or I'm going to do air quotes, that is pursuing it, is
mhm.
putting it on themselves that is an excuse as to why they should not. So same thing as a job, you get a day job. Okay, well I got to just continue to do this because if I go and I pursue acting or music or whatever in my spare time, I'm not going to have time to do what I need to do in this day job. Okay, well you need to prioritize what's more important. is what you're pursuing and the ultimate output of your life going to be the thing that you're putting your time and energy into? And are the people around you supporting that? And if it's at the sacrifice of a relationship that is not in support of that, maybe it's healthy for both of you, both people, to no longer be in that. I think I like to take personal responsibility for, like, hey, I think it takes balls to say, um, like, I'm going to be man enough uh, to say this relationship isn't conducive to what I want, and so you're never going to be happy with what ultimately I need to do in order to be happy, and so it's not good for both of us to be in this. And I think it's the same thing, like you Trent, were talking about being in LA and getting a job, like a normal day job, and it just gets in the way. I think people get into these traps of like telling themselves this other person is responsible for me not doing what I need to do.
Lack
My
of
boss,
accountability.
my partner, my whatever it is, your mom, your dad, your I don't know, your roommate, your fucking, I don't know, your your
It's
gerbil.
part of it's
You know,
part of growing, we all have to go through it. I mean, we all have to go through those emotions because those are the things that shape us into having the characters we have, which make us either likable or unlikable or best for this role or
yeah.
best for, what I'm saying? So like those all those things are necessary for you to go through an experience. And I just think based out of to kind of sum it all up, the most important thing I feel like when you do have kids or something like that, or you do have people you have to teach is to take those experiences and the whole point of us living is to get better with every generation. So if you know what it's like to be in a bad situation where the person is unsupportive, like then why repeat the process? So many people repeat the process when they've been given you've gone through it so you can understand how not to uh, repeat the process. That you going
Yeah.
through it wasn't to tear you down or break you up. It was the fact that now you've been blessed to bring
Wisdom to the
another.
next generation. Yeah.
There you go. So now that you know how it feels to touch the hot stove, you teach your kids or you teach whoever you're in leadership of to touch it. Whether it's a child or whether you're a boss at work and you're running a corporate team and you're the leader or you're a producer of a movie, like you exude that energy and you allow you lead by example and you say, listen, I know how it feels to not be supported by one particular person or a group of people or a family member or a spouse or whatnot. So I want to make sure that I'm supportive of everyone that's on my team. And I encourage you guys and I use positive affirmation. And I wake up on not every day, but I try to wake up on the good side of the bed every day. To at least when you see me and you have an interaction with me, that I give you the best I can,
Yeah.
which is, I'm going to have off days, but at least you could say 90% of the time, he brings a good vibe to the team. And if you can have that mentality in whatever workplace you have, whether it's being a parent or like I said, in running a business or producing a movie or running a car dealership,
Or showing up to work at a fucking
you
uh,
know,
Starbucks.
Dunkin' Donuts. Yes,
whatever.
Starbucks. Thanks, Biz.
People
Yeah.
begin to take that information and spread it in their own lives, and they begin to take it from work and say, when I was working with Biz on this movie, man, I could just remember how positive he was. You know what I'm saying? Or when Patrick was up there, man, he was just so dope. Like, and next thing you know, that same person is taking that and they're reiterating the same way your energy and they're putting it in their own family.
Right.
He's
Right.
able to go home and wake up in the morning and encourage his son. Like, hey, you want to be a coder? Fuck yeah, let's go. Like, I went
Yeah.
going through, but it's like you don't know how much you touch people by being positive,
Yeah.
and being
Well,
in a good state of mind.
I think that's kind of what I was trying to get across to, and I think you said it more poignantly than I did on my
Nah,
long
yeah, bro.
tangents that I that I tend to go on. But like the fact that like for your kids, right? Like you don't want to be on your deathbed. For I want to be an example for my kids that you don't want to be on your deathbed and say, let's say I stayed with this person just for the sake of staying with them, never pursued any of my dreams, never lived out my life to my fullest potential just because it was an obligation, and that's that, right? Sometimes things are hard, decisions are hard, and it's better for everyone. You're not just being selfish. That isn't ultimately what I'm saying. Don't like just abandon people, because that's not what I'm saying at all. But sometimes you have to say, in order to do what I need to do to be better for everyone else, I need to make decisions that are tough, and sometimes, sometimes may not be enjoyable for some people.
And that is,
But it is for the betterment of me being the best me that I could be. I guess that's
and that decision sometimes,
after
guess what?
school special
It's the complete
sentence.
opposite sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes that decision is staying there fighting it out with a person that you know what I
True.
mean? And then guess
Very
what?
true.
Sometimes it is, yeah, and
20,
sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's the opposite. Yeah, like just like you said.
but I feel like that's the beautifulness of life, is that we have the ability to make that choice. Like I can sit here and say, okay, I'm with this girl and I know she don't rock with me. She, you know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. I'm out. And guess what? You have the freedom and choice to make that, and you have to live whatever pros and cons come with that. Um, and then you also have the decision to say, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna make you into a believer. I'm gonna stick here. And guess what? 20 years later, it clicks like a light bulb, and she gets it. And then, but you also have to be, willing to deal with whatever pros and cons come from that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's a lot of fucking headaches. You're
A lot of
losing your,
sacrifice. Yeah.
you know what I mean? But if you're okay with taking that on, then guess what? That's what works for you as a person. So and just learning that, not even looking at every decision as a bad or good thing. It's just learning that people just make the best choices they
Yeah.
can for themselves and their vision for where they need to be in life.
See,
So
I think I needed to hear that today, Trent. So I appreciate that.
yeah, and I think that's something everyone needs to kind of take a little bit of a step back nowadays too. I think that social media tends to put people in these echo chambers, and like I think ultimately that's where people are moving. Not everyone. There are assholes and
Mhm.
there are evil people, right?
No.
But for the most part, people are trying to make their own lives better, and are coming from a place where they think, at least
Yeah,
they're coming from a good place. So I think a little bit more understanding from everyone, everywhere,
absolutely.
is a good thing. But dude, it was really good freaking talking to you, Trent.
Super dope, man. I haven't done too many Zooms, man. The quarantine, I have to stay away from the Zooms, but this
Well,
is
this is
super
good.
dope.
This is good because me and Biz typically we would do it in person, like in my home studio here.
Yeah.
But we've been doing a bunch of them via Zoom. But it gives us so much more like opportunity to go to like LA and Florida and like
Right,
all
right.
these
We've had
different.
so many guests from not local
Yeah,
as of the last like 6, 7, 8 episodes since we started doing them Zoom. That I prefer doing it in person too. It gives a different feel for the interview when you can be there right there with someone and feel the emotions coming out of them as they're telling their stories. But this way's been okay too, because we can share the visual easier with our audience this way than we used to be able to. So it's got its pros and cons. There's some sacrifices we make. I feel like that's the theme of the episode, so why not keep going?
Right.
so let me ask you this, because I'll probably be out in LA as soon as travel feels a little bit more safe. I've traveled, so I went to PA a few weeks ago. That was like the first travel, but I was in LA in February, like right as all this was happening. I went to LA and I
Mhm.
spent I think 4 days or 5 days there, and then I was in New Jersey, and then I was back in Rochester, and then I've just been here for, you
Yeah.
know, past 6 months, and then I finally went to Pennsylvania. It felt so good to be in a hotel, which I never thought I'd say. Like, oh, I'm so happy to be in a hotel, but like I was like, oh my god, this feels so normal now. Um, so how close are you to the beach is the question I'm gonna ask. Are you pretty close to the beach up there? You said you're where? North Hollywood?
Yeah, it's probably about a 35-minute drive to the beach.
All right.
You know,
That's nothing though. If you get to be in North Hollywood, I mean, 35 minutes to a beach, I'll take that.
yeah. I honestly, my goal is to. I've been up this way for quite some time, man. So now that I'm kind of giving up, because I still cut hair full time. But I'm actually beginning top of the year. I'm no longer gonna be cutting hair no more. I'm gonna be strictly full time
Hmm.
music, full time.
So I've got
That's
a
great, man. Congratulations.
I've got a bunch of
Kind of,
contact,
because I know you love it. I'm sorry.
bunch
Yeah.
of good contacts. You said are you making films too?
I'm actually, yes, in the process of producing. So I have about two specific projects that I'm working on now. One is a big indie project that I'm working on with a writer director,
Hmm.
and another one is actually like a really big screenplay. So um, started out. It's been hard. Like that's kind of like I love it though. Like I actually love the kind of the moving around and running around. So
Yeah.
um,
Filmmaking is like,
Same, man.
it's like the
Yeah.
ultimate, it's the ultimate like creatives
mhm.
like project to dump themselves in. It's especially if you're producing it, like, because you're doing like music, you're doing audio, you're doing the camera stuff, you've got actors, you're managing a bunch of creative people, you're managing some business stuff, you're doing like catering, you're managing like all this shit. um it's like, I feel like it's the ultimate
Yeah.
obsessive compulsive like
Yeah.
Well, plus as a producer, you get to see, you know what I mean? A lot of people think that producers, directors, and executive producers, nobody knows what any of them actually do until you get into the industry and you understand that
Yeah.
directors direct actors and
Yeah.
producers handle most everything else, and executive producers put up the money, more or less. So at the end of the day, the producer, when you get to swing a producer role, you get to see all these ideas on paper that look like just crazy people wrote them. And over the course of 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, you get to see that all get dumped onto an editor and on the verge of coming to life. You know what I mean? It's a very rewarding process if you're into management and into, like you said, a little OCD.
Yeah.
Producer work is phenomenal because it's one of the few jobs, I would say, in entertainment
you're
that's
literally
rewarding.
controlling everything.
Right. You get to see, not only
Sometimes
do you
in a
get to
good way,
control
but
the level of reward, but you get to witness that level of reward kind of
Yeah.
firsthand at every step. It's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah. So that's
so
kind of like what I want my job to be like, just finding content. Like I've learned like, okay, there's some projects that I kind of want to just get, greenlit for other people and just have my executive producer role. And then there's
Yeah.
certain projects that I'm like, I actually want to be hands on. I want to
In the
be,
trenches. Yeah.
I want to work hand in hand and pull this and make this happen. So, but I love it, man. And honestly, man, I can't wait to, like I said, be that bridge for like, producers like yourself, man, who's like, yeah, look, man, I'm not trying to be out in LA traffic anytime soon. But it would be nice to have a partner where it's like, hey, man, look, you know, we got something going to where like 3 or 4 big movies are being shot in
Yeah,
Rochester.
man. I'm
Year,
your Rochester ground team. You're
you know,
at home producer right here. You know what I mean?
so it's just like, and that's because I get it, man. Not everybody wants to make that jump, man, and that doesn't make
There's just
it's
a lot of factors. You know what I mean? Like we were saying before, there's so many angles of a decision and so many angles to pursuing more or less like a selfish lifestyle like this, where, you know what I mean? Like, of course the benefits of your music will trickle into your family, but at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like, your significant other, your kid, they didn't want to be a singer songwriter. That's you. That's your dream. You know what I mean? Like that, and for them to sacrifice and for them to want to go along with the ride, like you said, it's
yeah,
clutch. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
it's it's so clutch.
So, but I'm all in, man. For once things I'm getting things dialed in right now, for the movie. But once I get a clear vision on like what's the next step for us, just for COVID, we were looking to get it. It feels like a 5-week shoot. It's a prison movie, so
So what's up?
yeah. So it's really dope, man. But I'm excited, man. I definitely shoot you over the deck. Shoot you over the script so you can see
what's
who's
the name of the
involved.
album?
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you
yeah.
have a name for your album that you said was dropping in?
The album is either going to be called The Room or is it's going to be called something new.
All
I
right.
haven't decided on what I want to call it yet. So I'm excited about that, man. And
So your first EP, man, that's the best one. And then what you do is you put it out, and then you're like, oh, I could have done this. I should have changed this for the next like 2 or 3 years. I
yeah,
just
man.
I just put out something recently, and I'm like, I've been working on it for so long, but I was working on it for so long that I'm just glad that it was out. And now I'm like, oh, I could have just done a little bit more on it, but it never would have been released had I not, just
That's
dropped it. So
that's a downside about being a musician. You're your
yeah,
own worst critic, and Now I'm to the point where I'm like, put that shit out. Like I don't even think about it anymore. Like I
Are
don't
you
care.
are you BMI? Are you ASCAP? What
I'm being mine. Yeah.
BMI? Okay.
It's so many loopholes, man. I figured out. It's like people like, hey, you do this. I'm like, nah, not yet. Like I know, like now I know, like for writers signing pub deals, like the shitty stuff, the good stuff,
Yeah.
like the tricks. So it's like now I'm kind of like being meticulous on how I move to be like, okay, when I do this, then I'm gonna do that.
Yeah,
Then I'm
yeah.
gonna do, So it's cool, man.
So if because we touched briefly, and I know we're going a little bit over on time here, but
I'm
um,
good, man. Chill.
I know that you said you were starting to get into licensing for TV and film, and I had a partner actually with when did you move? 5 years ago. So I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
I had my bar Muller's Cider
Uh
Bar
huh.
here in Rochester. So I was a
Yep.
co-owner. My partner did a lot of licensing too. Like he had some music in like 90210 and Melrose
Okay.
Place and all those things. That's what he does, like on his as his side thing, music
Uh
wise.
huh.
So that's kind of how we met, and then we're like, oh, let's open up this bar together or whatever. So like, were you doing any licensing before you got out to LA, or was it like you moved out there and were like someone introduced you? Because what I'd like to introduce people to, especially musicians. So here's the deal: our audience base is like Rochester, but we've also got New York City, we've got LA, we've got Australia, we've got some European countries and stuff. People that are listening. So licensing is basically you write a song.
Mm-hmm.
You have a performance rights organization like BMI or ASCAP that you license the song with, so
Mm-hmm.
that you know that you own it, and then you can sell off publishing so that someone else can publish it, make percentages off it, et cetera. It gives you like a gambling chip, so to speak, um,
Yep.
to play around with. So, how did you get and what we were talking about before is that's kind of where the money is right now for unsigned, like not giant artists, even signed artists. I mean, I think that's where the money is. Julia Roberts, I think her name is. Fucking amazing songwriter. She's just starting to get like actually popular as an artist, but written so many fucking songs. How did you break into that, if I may ask, like real quick?
When I got when I was out here doing the writing stuff, doing the whole trying to be a writer for other artists because I actually moved to LA just to do writing because I wanted to kind of just get money behind the scenes and go back home and be with my little man. But I got tired of doing the whole running around with artists, and I was like, man, I feel like I'm able to be way more creative just doing licensing because it's like they don't doing work for an artist is like so like monotonous, like they want this, they want that, they blah, blah, blah. But it's like music for film could be anything, it's like we don't want specifically hip hop. It's like we're looking for this up tempo, we want different topics. So it allows you just to be
Yeah.
more creative. And it was just like this is a whole lot more funner than working for these retarded artists. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It is what it is. Like it's just and the payouts I feel like depending on who you're licensing to, I think could be a lot more lucrative even than working with an artist, and a
For
lot less
sure, for sure.
political. So I think to so if
What
you
I
don't
what I what I like about it too is that so I generally don't. So my business partner in the bar would
mm-hmm,
write. He was really good at writing like '90s, like Will
mm-hmm,
Smith style hip hop,
right.
like that kind of like '90s hip hop stuff. So he would write that all the time, and they were always looking for that for like commercials and TV shows for like certain scenes, right? And what's really interesting about it that I don't think a lot of young musicians know is that if you get into licensing, like you were saying, you're writing country, you're writing this or that, right? They say we need a style of music that mimics, I don't know, Tweet, right?
Yep.
Which she's from Rochester, by the way. I found out recently. When I found that, I was like, "Oh shit, no shit." Tweets from fucking Rochester.
Yep.
But like, so tweet or fucking um, sounds like Halsey, right?
Yep.
But isn't Halsey, right? Because to license her is going to be way more expensive. So something that just kind of sounds like it that we can throw in the background of a commercial or a TV show or an interlude or whatever,
Yep.
to have the transition there. And so as someone that can license music and is a songwriter, one, you need to sign up with a BMI, ASCAP,
Absolutely.
what's the Canadian, oh, what the hell's the name of it? I've had too many old fashions now.
Good.
But the performance rights organizations, and then you
Yep.
go out and you license these songs, and every time it gets played, that's a performance, and so you get paid off of it. So depending on where you're licensing it to, that you're getting paid.
Hmm.
I think that as young musicians, that doesn't get put up as a this is an option, right? It's like you can go
Stuff
out, you
you
can
learn.
perform, and you can be a famous musician. That's your option, right? Like go be Taylor Swift or whatever. Go be whoever it is. But there isn't. I feel like as young musicians, you don't get told like you can just write some songs if you're good at songwriting. Write some songs for a commercial, and then you get
Yeah.
paid, and then craft your and hone your skill writing. Like it's almost like having a deadline for something. Like you
Yep.
being forced to write for stuff is a great friggin' skill to have. Um,
Absolutely. That information is just, it is what it is. You know, when you get when the money and licensing is very good, you know, and it's even to the point now where it's even starting to become, the payouts are becoming to get watered down because of the amount of content that's
yeah,
being pushed out by, all of these brands. And it's like, okay, well, maybe like 10 years ago, it's like, man, you get your song in a movie, like no matter what movie it was in, because it was just in a movie, it's just the payout was crazy. But now it's like a lot of indie projects, the budgets aren't as big. Um, so now it's like starting to get, it's, people are becoming more aware of it. But that's our job. That's our job as people that have gone through the struggle of not having different outlets, to introduce those options to other musicians and say, listen, if you don't make it to go on tour with Jay-Z, that's fine. You can still make quite a lot of money, if not more, licensing music. And you can still do it in the confines of Rochester, New York. And you know what I'm saying? And you don't necessarily have to, pack your only fucking suitcase and move halfway across the country. But that's why we had to go through it. So we can give those, that's why I said those tools to the younger generation, so they don't necessarily have to climb, such high mountains to have a little bit of success in this world. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so I love like music licensing, and I think it's a great avenue for while you're in the wing waiting, while you're in the wing training, or while you're in the wing, like trying not to work three jobs. If you could have a dope liaison to get you licensing cuts on commercials and brands, videos, and in movies and TV shows and short films and stuff like that, like why not? You know what I mean? Like, not miserable. You're making money, doing what you love. You're not, astronomically rich, but you're not broke either. And in some cases, you could be a lot, you know, more well off than others.
Yeah.
Doing licensing. So
Oh yeah.
that's just our job, to take that information and give it back. And a lot of people, they just aren't cool with giving up that
so
information. So
let's let's we'll take it in a little bit here. So I think it's important um, for our listeners to know that people like Trent are out there. If you're in LA, reach
what's
out
up?
to him. Just hit his Instagram, his
Yeah.
Facebook. Why don't you just pimp out all the stuff that you got there? Any ways to get in contact with you? Find your music, find your art, find your film stuff.
Um, Main thing right now is the music, and Instagram is I am Trent Monroe. Facebook's are I am Trent Monroe. I try to keep everything simple. In November, you'll see a lot more stuff pumped out about the album, and then after top of the year, I'll have a bigger direction on the movie stuff. But right now, man, just look forward to great music, man. Great music, dope ass interviews with squads like y'all, all the way back east, man. We doing it, man. And thank you guys for just you know putting y'all best foot forward and giving people like me the opportunity to even have a voice. So if it wasn't for individuals like you guys, we wouldn't exist. So I'm extremely grateful just to be on it, and time is priceless, man. So I love it. Let's do it.
Dude, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. There was a fucking great talk, and we'll have to have you on again after the album drops. You want to promote whatever you want to do? You
Absolutely,
let me
man.
know.
And I can I can refer some people. You guys, whether they're athletes or whatever you
Oh,
guys want, anybody, I
absolutely.
visit email and say, hey, you can definitely consider these guys.
Yeah, realistically, Trent, I'm always looking for guests, and even if we end up getting like a big flush of them all at once, like me and Patrick got backed up in the beginning of September, and
Mhm.
we're just now starting to get available slots again come November. So we had gotten backed up a little bit, and if you have anyone, I mean, you already have my email address because I think I
Yep.
sent you some stuff. So go ahead and even if it's just a rough list and some Instagram handles, I'll do all the legwork of contacting them and everything. If you want to shoot me that information, it'd be great.
Yeah,
Cool
and
bean.
just to reiterate, man, Trent, I think I don't need to wish you success. I think you're already on your way there, and I think that you don't need me saying that. I think you got the talent and the business sense to like do what you're looking to do out there. And
Thanks,
next
man.
time I'm in LA, I'll reach out to you and we'll go
Just
down on the
hit me
beach.
up, man. You
Yeah.
guys, I'm open, man. Let me know. I got you, man. Y'all the
We'll play
homies.
some music. I'll bring my guitar and we can
No, you messaged me not too long ago on Instagram. You're
write some
like,
shit.
Biz, what are you waiting for on getting to LA? And I was like, yo, you think you're out there rubbing shoulders? You think I can make it out there? Like,
I'll
stop,
fly
you're gassing me up.
I'll fly Biz out there. Me and Biz will
That
fly
at
coach.
least come to visit. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it'd be nice to just have because you're in the producing, man. Like
Yeah.
like you got not everybody's experience is built in LA. Some people, man, is like, listen, I did all my legwork, and then they come out here and smack. Like, you know what I mean?
It's like getting that jar open. You know what I mean? I got it loosened up for you.
You gotta tap
Yeah.
it on the
Come out here, at least do a project or something. Visit, hang out and build your
Yeah.
relationships, man. Because
Yeah.
shit, you never know, bro. So, I just try to encourage people I see that genuinely like. I'm looking at his Instagram, I'm like, oh shit,
What's
like he's really doing this film shit. Like,
do you
I'm like, this is dope. Like, fuck.
do you know like
Appreciate you,
so
bro.
what's
Appreciate you.
what's the quarantine thing? Like if we come out to LA,
Man, we out here chilling, bro.
so but
No, California is on the list of places you can go, come back, and not have to quarantine.
oh really?
I believe that last time I looked, because
What if we go there
I
though?
got
Do
a
we have to wait
Yeah,
14
that's what
days
I'm.
once
No,
we're
no,
there?
no. I think that most of the states that New York State requires you to quarantine when you come back from are most of the southern states and a few of the southwestern states. But if I'm not mistaken, last time I looked, California was clear because I have a cousin that lives in Santa Monica, and she keeps telling me like, "Biz, you work in the industry. Why don't you just come stay here for a week and find, even if it's just a couple random gigs, just to like start building up your West Coast brand?" So.
Well,
I've shown a lot of interest in it, so that's
maybe
why I
we'll
know
do
about
that.
the
We'll
quarantine
come out
status.
to LA. Although I haven't flown yet since all of this.
Don't
So
worry about it, bro. I done been to
I'm
Miami.
gonna wear a full hazmat suit as I get on the airplane.
Nah, you good, bro. There's people that I can leave this week in Arizona for work. I mean, I done been to New York City. I done been to Miami twice. I've been you're good.
I mean, I'm
All right,
working on
fair
a
enough.
production right now that's got a bunch of people from Connecticut, Louisiana, stuff like that. And I mean, not only are they not sick, but I mean they're taking it serious. So I mean that's all I can ask for. You know what I mean? Is that people take it serious. You aren't all. I didn't want people all up on me to begin with. So now that there's like extra scary, superficial germs out there, I'm trying to have it even less. So I'm with that.
You get your little, as long as y'all got y'all like the hotel thing situated, you're
Oh, yeah.
good.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
straight.
we're not sleeping on your couch. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
come on. What do you mean you're not going to let us sleep over?
I'm all
Yeah,
in.
we're good. All right, Trent, thank you for coming on, man. I really
Yeah, man,
appreciate it.
really do appreciate you for getting back to me and for agreeing to be on here with us.
Man, it's not a problem, man. Listen, man, it's how we do from the rock. We gotta take care of each other. We all we got.
Absolutely. All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your night. And what day is it? Monday?
And enjoy your success. Yes, it is Monday, and this
Oh, it's
is
Monday.
episode 37.
All right, episode 37. So we just had Trent Monroe on there on the show today. Look him up on Spotify, and we'll post some links. We'll post links to everything we had, including some of the things that Trent talked about in Rochester here, the outreach program and stuff. I'm Patrick Joanne,
I'm Bizzle Chance.
and this is Infiltrate Radio, and thank you guys for listening. Tune in next time.
Infiltrate Radio.